everybody. Good Monday, happy morning, whatever you want to call it here on Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and joining us. I am Paul Russo. I'm joined along with Kyle Evans and producer Nate Sharman, manning the controls behind the scenes. You obviously will hear his voice from time to time on the podcast. Kyle, pretty positive opening weekend for the New York baseball teams at the major league level, I'd say.
Yeah, and both teams actually came very close to a sweep.
Yeah. Obviously, had an inclination, at least on the Mets front, right? We discussed. I figured they'd lose one game, and the last game I didn't really expect them to lose in a way. And then on obviously the minor league side of things with Rochester and Syracuse, tale of two different teams really. The opening week for them. We'll touch on that, obviously, but Rochester looking pretty strong out of the gate. Obviously, tough to tell. And that's the same thing, too, to be fair at the major league level. But, Rochester looking really strong out of the gate. The Syracuse Mets, not so much. But we'll touch on both of those, obviously. And
one thing we have to remember is it's also very early.
Right.
Just one series in. But
right. And it's always tough. And that's the thing, right? I mean, it's tough to really gauge off the bat quite, who's going to be good where and who's not. And that's actually something that, we discussed a little bit off screen right before the podcast is, how many grains of salt should we take, at least with the minor league squads, right? Because many things can happen. Obviously, Rochester, for example, being affiliated with the Nationals, and that's who the Mets played. And if they're not great, the first month, odds are you're going to see probably a couple of those guys get pulled up or traded away, used as trade bait in some way, shape, or form. So
yeah, the roster's always moving
right
at the AAA level.
Right. So we'll obviously get to those towards the tail end, but let's jump right in. We'll start with the New York Yankees taking 2 of 3 from the Red Sox. So they'll start the year 2-1, obviously early, but tied second in the AL East. We'll start with opening day for the Yankees, obviously getting pushed back from Thursday to Friday, but a 6-5 victory in extra innings final after the 11th inning. Michael King picks up the win for the Yankees. Carter Crawford picked up the loss. Your top performers technically in that game, and this is something we'll hone in on throughout the year, obviously. DJ LeMahieu, big home run there for the Yankees during the game. Xander Bogaerts for the Red Sox went 3 for 5, double RBI. But Anthony Rizzo, who really has probably been the hottest Yankee to start the year, we'll touch on him a little bit more once we get through the games. He picked up a home run in the opening game as well. But really the main storyline to me in that game was the Josh Donaldson walk-off single in the 11th inning.
Yeah, and one of my biggest takeaways, too, is the team kept battling. They actually trailed 3 times in that game, and each time they came back to tie it. Right,
and I know Nate was kind of dogging us a little bit about Garrett Cole, but it's tough. Either way, it's tough opening day, right? And this is something that I'll kind of get out of the way with now. But each game, all but one game actually, or one starter, was a no decision for both teams over the weekend for the Yankees and Red Sox rather. The only starter to get a decision was Nick Pivetta for the Red Sox, who got credit for the loss on Saturday. So it's always tough to tell. This year especially, looking from a grand, say macro level across all the big leagues, a lot of starters did not see the end of the 5th inning, I noticed throughout the weekend. And I don't know if that was just weather situation, or I think it has more to do with the lack of a full spring training.
Yep, for sure. They're just not built up that high with their pitch counts.
And Saturday, Yankees come away with a 4-2 victory over Boston. Just 9 innings this time around, obviously. Lucas Ludic, as I always call him, comes away with the credited victory in this game. Nick Pivetta, as I mentioned, credit the loss. He'll walk away with that game with a 6.35 ERA at the moment. Chapman picked up his first save of the year. Top performers from that game, Alex Verdugo, 2 for 3, home run and a walk, 2 RBIs for the Red Sox. Other than that, we had a Stantonian bomb from Giancarlo Stanton. And again, Rizzo had another home run on Saturday. So it's nice to see Riz really stepping up. And this was a point of, I wouldn't say contention among many Yankee fans. I know it was probably a little bit under the radar, but all things considered, at least early on here, a very positive re-signing technically for the Yankees.
Yeah, I don't hear many Yankees fans talking about Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman right now. So,
interesting note on Saturday as well. I think we all kind of know about how the Yankees fans can be in Yankee Stadium. Alex Verdugo had a pretty interesting quote post-Saturday about the creatures out in left field. Now, normally in the Yankee Stadium specifically, you mentioned the bleacher creatures, and they haven't been, I think, talked about as much in recent years just because of the way the new stadium is and how, I guess, tamed down things have been. But Verdugo had an interesting quote. I'll quote him verbatim here, pretty much saying how out in left field, the comments that he gets told by Yankee fans kind of fuel him, and he can't wait to kind of get out there and see him and talk back to them a little bit.
Yeah, after his home run, I saw him raise his hand going around second, pointing at them.
Right. I have sat in the bleachers before. It's an interesting crowd out there. I don't know. Have you ever been out in the bleacher creatures before?
I actually have not.
It's a sight to be. It's a sight and an experience to behold. Nate, have you at all before? Or?
I haven't sat out there. I know about it, of course. I just have one question about it. Is that a Nick Swisher thing, or was that before Nick Swisher?
No, this was well before.
Okay, I know Nick Swisher always embraced it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if he kind of was the man that began it, or
Yankee players embrace the bleacher creatures.
Okay, I always knew Nick Swisher was very public about it too. And you could always see him doing it.
This is a name that kind of been forgotten about in recent years to a degree because he's kind of, I think, not as taken as much charge. I think he's just kind of over it to a degree. But Bald Vinny, do you know the name Bald Vinny? Do you?
Yeah, I've heard that name.
Okay, so he kind of was the main guy there for probably about the better part of 2 decades, kind of leading the bleacher creatures. I know he still has a T-shirt business, but yeah, he was kind of the main one. And the bleacher creatures at Yankee Stadium have been a thing for really since pretty much the 90s, the mid 90s when they started to get hot again. And they've always been a thing, even dating back to I know the 70s. Where just look at some the highlights from the World Series and playoff runs back then, and you know what I mean. But yeah, like I said, ever since he kind of calmed down, and really the new stadium, I think, has taken a lot of the juice out of the bleacher creatures as a whole. Anyway, getting back to the games on Sunday, this is where the Yankees had their loss, and the Red Sox were able to take the rubber match of the series. Boston come away 4-3 yesterday with the victory. Cutter Crawford comes thundering back, takes the victory. Clark Schmidt took the loss for the Yankees out of the bullpen. Jake Diekman taking the save for the Red Sox. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on through the year. We'll touch base on that though in a second. Bobby Dahlbeck hit a home run for the Red Sox. Rizzo, again, another really great game. Couple walks, couple RBIs, picked up a hit. And then Stanton, 3 for 5 with an RBI. Main storyline to me, though, and I'll ask you the question here in a second, Kyle, is the comebacker that hit Jordan Montgomery. Hit him low and in the leg. Obviously, if you're going to get hit by a comebacker, it's probably the least severe of the outcomes to a degree. But that being said, this reminded me a lot of Charlie Morton's injury last year. And for a second, it did not look like Montgomery was going to stay in the game. I certainly did not think he looked the same after the fact. It hit him really in the back of the left knee. I know on the broadcast they kind of made it seem like he was hitting the calf, but it certainly looked like it was back of the knee truly.
Yep.
Obviously, MRI and X-ray. I think it was was it just X-ray or was it MRI?
I think just X-ray.
Okay, so that came back negative. He hopes to be back. Are you hearing anything else at this point out of there in terms of that?
No. When he spoke last night, he seemed to be perfectly fine, and he said he would just put ice on it and stuff, and he thinks he's going to make his next start later this week.
Yeah. So Montgomery is a very key part of this rotation. I think people don't really realize that. When he's on, he really does remind me of Pettit. Yep. Very similar builds, very similar windups and foul and releases as well. I don't think he's maybe necessarily as powerful as Pettit is at the moment, but I mean Montgomery's young. This was a guy who was in his prospect pipeline. He didn't get as much notoriety until later on. He was a guy who kind of quietly went up the ranks to a degree, and then once he really performed at AA, got some recognition.
And right now he's the only left-hander in the rotation.
Right.
So.
And that's a key part in this too. I mean, the Yankees do not have a ton of left-handed pitching depth in general. Obviously, you mentioned Montgomery, but the Red Sox, though, obviously this is a New York baseball podcast here, but obviously the Yankees play the Red Sox very often, and we'll touch on this
19 times.
Yeah, because you also wanted to mention something as well that occurred in the AL East, which is justifiable in nature. The Red Sox, to me, they're going to be at a crossroads here with their closer role sooner than later between Barnes and Diekman. I would think I would roll Diekman. I don't know. Matt Barnes has always been a bit of a mystery pitcher. Very hit or miss. Obviously, for him, his lows are really low, but his highs are super high. Whereas Diekman, to me, is a very much so, I guess, even pitcher. Just like a closer, he has his times where he'll blow the save, but there are more instances in my mind where he does the job. He doesn't overwhelm you, but like I said, the same token, you know what you're going to get. I think I guess what I'm getting at is, would you rather have the peaks and the valleys with Barnes or just the level plateau with Diekman? Because I think I'd just rather have the level plateau with Diekman.
Yeah, and his stuff looked really good last night. I mean,
right.
He struck out the side.
Mm-hmm.
So,
looking ahead for the Yankees, actually, let's start here for a quick second, because you mentioned a very key thing with the AL East off air, and I want to touch on. Leading the AL East, I think, to the surprise of maybe overall no one when you think about it, Tampa Bay sweeping Baltimore. Maybe not in that aspect of surprise,
especially their opponent.
But again, I think this Rays team, we talk about them selling off all the time, but the same token,
they're always there.
They're always there. And you brought up a good point with that. Obviously, shutting out Baltimore yesterday. I think this Tampa Bay team's going to be a headache all year again.
Yep, they're going to definitely be in it right till the end.
They are a prospect factory, Tampa Bay. It seems like they always have somebody.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they kind of are. It helps that when they unload these guys, they tend to get some really good prospects back anyway.
Right, yeah. And they just know what to do with them, too, when they're after they take on
or
acquire them.
For the most part, they do.
Yeah.
They're going to be at an interesting point here in the very near future about that middle infield. Obviously, Wander Franco, but Taylor Wells is very good as well. And then you also have another really good middle infield prospect in I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Viel Brojic. I think I'm mispronouncing it pretty bad there, but and then they got another middle infield prospect back in the Meadows deal that's very good. So they're going to be at a crossroads with that. Now, what they do with them, I don't know. I mean, you had a situation many years ago now where they had B.J. Upton converted from shortstop to an outfielder. So I don't know if they do that with any of the guys. I'm not an overall big fan of that, just in general, but
they're just kind of a strange team overall. I remember they invented the opener.
Yeah, and they're really the only teams that still implements it on a regular basis as well. That being said, their favorite openers heading to the IL with Yarborough, so who knows? All right, look ahead for the Yankees. They have a 4-game set with Toronto, home at Yankee Stadium before the Yankees head out on the road for their first road trips of the year. 4-game set, though. All games on Yes Network for that, and all games 7:05, which is pretty interesting to me. Usually that last day, which is the getaway day, is usually a day game, but it's scheduled for 7:05 Thursday as well. So either way, Alex Manoah against Jameson Taillon tonight. Both those guys getting their first starts of the year. Tomorrow, you have Yusei Kikuchi, signee from Seattle, and against Nasty Nestor Cortez. Both their first starts of the year tomorrow night at 7:05. Wednesday's when you come back into guys one game down, coming out for their second start of the year. Both, really be fair, both teams' aces on Wednesday night with Barrios and Garrett Cole. and then Thursday with Gosman, and then Luis Severino. So, look, this Toronto team's really good. I think that goes without saying. Certainly a very good offensive team, and that to the point where that pitching does get overlooked.
Yeah, I actually think that the series is a lot. I think at least a few of these games will be a slugfest, and I really think it's like whoever comes through with runners in scoring position really will win the game.
Toronto's got 7 home runs already, right? Because did you see the Bob Nightingale tweet?
Yeah,
he said they have 17. I'm pretty sure they have 7 already, which is pretty shocking.
Yeah, I would need to relook at that, but the one game I was watching against Texas, they were all slugfest games for the most part against the Rangers all weekend.
Weren't they down 7-0 in one of them?
Yeah, Friday
the first game, I believe,
they were down 7-0. Friday was a game that I ended up live lining Toronto.
Nice.
So, their usual suspects are doing their thing, right? Teoscar, Bo, Vlad Jr., to the point where it doesn't really look like they're missing Simeon at all. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So be interesting there. I'm kind of leaning probably a split 2-2 series or Toronto 3-1 in all honesty. I really like the matchup tonight pitching wise. I think this is a weird one where I feel like this might be the low scoring game of the series in a weird way. Manoah's a really great young pitcher. Throws hard but is crafty. Tyone, as we know, very crafty, but if he leaves it up, tends to be where he stays the whole game.
Yep.
And then really tomorrow's a fun one if you're a sicko like me, where Kikuchi and Cortez, they don't throw hard by any means, but these are two dudes that, one of my favorite accounts. And I started following this account because as a coach, I'm not a pitcher by any means. I want to learn more about pitching so I could be a better asset to my players. And it's become one of my favorite just content accounts on Twitter with Pitching Ninja. These are two dudes that he loves. And so I'm really excited to get crafty with Kikuchi and Nasty Nestor.
This is actually my pick for the slugfest of the series.
Yeah, I can see that because they both tend to if they leave it hanging, which very often happens with both of them.
Yeah.
The ball was going to fly.
And honestly, as good as Nestor was last year, I don't think he's going to be quite as good. I think he might take a little step back.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think Kikuchi too was an all-star last year at Seattle, but down the stretch struggled a little bit.
Yep.
But remains to be seen. And obviously, you have really the last 2 games are the hired guns, borderline. That will be a fun one. That should be a fun one. All right, let's take a look at the New York Mets. Great series for them. 4 games in the nation's capital, taking 3 of 4 from the Nationals. They are alone in the NL East atop the standings there. Obviously, them Thursday got going. Tyler Maygill, 1-0. Patrick Corbin picked up the loss for the Nationals. Maygill did really good, I thought. All things considered, won 5 innings, 6 strikeouts. Top performers there was Maygill, Robinson Cano.
Welcome back.
I don't think we expected to say his name right off the bat like that. But he went 2 for 3 with a walk and 2 runs. And Mark Hanna in his debut for the Mets, 2 for 3 as well with an RBI and a run. That game was fairly ho-hum. Not much to take from that game. So we'll jump right into Friday's game, which was, I thought, the highlight game of the series for obvious reasons. The Mets come away with a victory there, 7-3. Scherzer pick up a win. Josiah Gray, who I think is going to be really great here down the road. Really a top prospect for the Dodgers, and they sent him to Washington. That deal last year with Scherzer and Trey Turner going to the Dodgers, but he picked up the loss. Top performers for that game, Jeff McNeil, howdy doody, 3 of 4 with a home run. Scherzer obviously won 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, gave up 3 though. Josh Bell hit a home run from the Nationals. But the main storyline there, after Pete Alonso got hit Thursday up high, Lindor was hit up high as well in the head. Resulted in Buck getting a bit heated, and you had the benches cleared. Not a brawl by any means, but benches cleared out. And I think that ranks more or less as just a kerfuffle on the tier rank. But always interesting in the opening series when you have, obviously, opening series for the most part are teams within the division, obviously with odd teams in each division, right? It's not always the case, but in this situation, obviously two teams that more than likely would be at opposite ends of the spectrum in the standings, but already obviously heated tempers and mixed emotions towards each other.
Yeah, I understand Buck Showalter's frustration because you never want your guys to get hit, but honestly, I don't necessarily think that both of them were intentional. No. I mean, they just got away. Like, I just don't think that they were intentionally trying to throw at their heads.
Right.
But
right. And that's the thing, right? I don't think I don't think when you throw up high like that, it's ever intentional. I think when it's intentional, right? It's usually in the back or the butt, something like that.
And wasn't it in like the middle of the count for both of them?
Right.
So
I know Lindor's was a 2-strike count, which is tough, right? At that point, you never, if at the very least, conventional baseball wisdom tells you that's not an intentional spot to hit somebody. Obviously, if it's 3-2, that one's a little bit of a toss-up. But conventional wisdom, either way, with 2 strikes, is you're not beating a guy.
Yeah.
Move on to Saturday. Mets with the shutout, 5-0 over Washington. Chris Bassett wins on his debut for the Mets. Yohan Adon picks up the loss for the Nationals. Chris Bassett won 6, had 8 strikeouts. Brandon Nimmo had his coming out party for 2022, 2 for 4, a double, and 2 runs. And then a late call-up, which we'll talk about for the Mets, Syracuse Mets anyway, here in a couple minutes. Travis Jankowski, 2 for 3 with a walk and 2 stolen bags. Jankowski, former Padre prospect, coming up, has kind of bounced around the past couple years.
Phillies legend as well.
I was about to say, pretty much in the NL East. He had a cup of coffee with the Reds, but last year pretty much with Philadelphia. And look, he's a known speedster. I think that's a really good asset for the Mets to have, all things considered.
Yeah.
Sunday, the only loss for the Mets on the weekend. Washington coming away 4-2. Kyle Finnegan picking up the win. For the Nationals. Trevor Williams takes the loss. Trevor Rainey. The only save in that series on the weekend. Trevor Rainey picks up the save for the Nationals. Carlos Carrasco got the no decision. He started from the Mets. Really great job. 5 2/3.
Yeah, he deserved better.
2 hits and 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. So, you mentioned deserved better there. But that's a really great sign to have him looking good in that first start.
Yeah, because he really did struggle at times last year when he, wasn't injured.
Mm-hmm. Lindor picked up a home run and a stolen base. And then a brief shout-out here for, I think baseball fans. Nelly Cruz got his 450th career home run yesterday. Went 2 for 4 with the game. But shout-out to Nelly Cruz. Extremely, really weird, under-the-radar player overall in his career.
Yeah, and he had the game-winning hit with a 2-run single. The Mets bullpen basically just imploded in the 8th inning.
Yeah, I think that was the case. Now that wasn't the case, obviously, the first 2 games, but, I mean, Thursday night, Juan Soto had an absolute bomb against Trevor May. And then on Friday night, a little bit of the same with not May. I can't remember who off the top of my head, but the Mets bullpen. We talk about early season. It's tough to fully get a full grasp, especially when it's just the opening series. But if that's the case for the Mets, then it helps knowing that that's what you need to go and do to improve is the bullpen.
And they actually did go to their relievers that they hadn't used yet,
right.
and Chasen Shreve and Trevor Williams. And obviously their first appearance, they both struggled. But at the same point, you have to have a solid bullpen to win games. So no matter who you put in, you should be able to get the job done. And against the weak Nationals, too. And
Williams is in a tough spot because he's going to be that flex starter for him. Yeah. This is a guy who normally is, his whole career up to this point has been a starter. So those usually are tough transitions for pitchers off the bat.
And also, I just want to point out, Mets fans need to stop blaming Buck Showalter for the bullpen decisions he made. You can't use guys 3 days in a row to start the year. You're going to have to go to other relievers. So
right, especially for them, they go right into a series with Philly, which we'll talk about here in a second. But they don't have an off day until Thursday, which, I this year's interesting the way that they've had the schedule constructed because of the lockout happening and taking as long as it did to strike the deal. Obviously, not as many off days. There are doubleheaders in play. But you bring up a good point. Buck is one of the, in my mind, best managers. Maybe not quite ever, but certainly of the past couple decades. Really great player manager. Like if you're a player, I know people are playing for him. Guy who really does, in my mind, the perfect mix of analytics and old school baseball thinking, or traditional baseball thinking, rather. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand the exact.
And he even actually mentioned that before the game. He
Right.
told reporters that he wanted to get those guys in the game, and
Right.
he wants to stay away from some of the key guys that he's used 3 days in a row.
Right. Look, I mean, the wear and tear, shortened spring training, that's a key part in this. You mentioned it. He brought it up too. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of Mets fans being maybe Mets fans. But look, you have a team here, like, that is showing that they aren't going to do the typical, like, what I call meme Met ways. Like, it's pretty apparent, right, that this is a team that is constructed in such a way that if there's going to be if there's going to be faults, it will show. But there are places that it can be made up for. Mention the bullpen, right? That might be the glaring spot right now. And that's all fine and well. But look, you have a guy like I mentioned, Trevor Williams, who is making that transition to being that flex starter from being a true starter, right? And he's a good guy. He's a good pitcher. Not great like initially thought when he came up with Pittsburgh a few years ago, but he's good. He's solid, right? Trevor May, solid reliever. He'll get his stuff together. I would imagine so anyway.
For sure.
Right? And you have proven guys in the arm. You mentioned a guy like Chasen Shreve. He's a proven reliever. He's the lefty you need in the pen, pretty much, right? And then obviously a guy like Seth Lugo, you know what he can do. The stuff's there.
You just got to put it together.
Right.
And more appearances will obviously
Exactly.
help.
I mean, that's something that we've mentioned here, not to beat a horse dead with it, right? But a shortened spring doesn't help. And look, I know these guys were working out and stuff like that, but you can only do so much in these workouts because you have limited access to what you can use.
Mm-hmm.
You had pretty much only 3 weeks of warm up. And that's the thing. I think this next few weeks you're going to see maybe not true comers and goers like we usually see, but I think you're going to see some fluky things happen. Not just specifically for Yankees and Mets,
mm-hmm.
but across the big league board. That being said, I still expect, a team like, say, Baltimore to just be bad, right? But, a team like Colorado, again, using just the macro examples here, look at what Colorado did over the weekend. Hung tough with the Dodgers in all series. Are they going to be as great as maybe we are led to believe? Probably not, but they might be one of these teams where they have the fluky situations happen and things kind of fall, right?
Yep.
Another example out west would be look at the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks hung tough with the Padres all weekend. They got swept, but they hung tough with them all weekend, which is something that I did not expect. So,
yeah. All
right, back to the main stuff here. Obviously, mentioned 3 games set here for the Mets against Philadelphia in Philly. 2 night games and then 1 day game as the getaway game, even though the Mets are heading just back to Queens after Wednesday.
And I believe Philly just took 2 of 3 from Oakland, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So all 3 games are on SNY. 6:45, first pitch tonight and Tuesday.
I wonder how Mets fans felt Friday night having to watch the game on Apple TV.
Yeah, that was rough. So, did you? I was at a friend's house and they ended up getting the free 3 months or whatever it is of it.
Yep.
I thought the broadcast was actually pretty good overall. I just have a big principle deal about how we have a commissioner who says he wants to grow the game. And with that in mind, he has put, I think it's roughly 20% of primetime games behind a paywall.
Yep. Ridiculous.
So, I mean, I don't know. It remains to be seen. Go ahead.
But he gave them all headphones.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice.
He wants better relationships with his players.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Guys who have deals with Bose and Beats anyway, giving them headphones.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're never gonna be sad about receiving headphones. That's always something you need.
it's not really the point.
Maybe-
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe minor leaguers would be more happy
Oh,
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
because they don't make a lot a year every year.
Right.
So
Anyway, back to the Mets. 6:45 first pitch tonight. Ty Walker gets his first start here against Rui Suarez for Philly. That one will be an interesting matchup tonight. I'm a big Ty Walker guy though, so but Suarez are interesting storyline last year. Mid-season call-up from AAA Lehigh Valley for Philly. And I believe at one point, post All-Star break, had like the best ERA in the big leagues. I know at one point, I think he was like on a 29 inning, no runs given up or something like that streak out of the bullpen initially. Like just wild stuff. But he's obviously a really good young arm for Philly, so that'll be a fun game to watch tonight.
I got a feeling that there's going to be a lot of runs in that game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah. Tomorrow night, 6:45, also on SNY. Miguel gets the bump again. This is where, again, top-of-the-line starters are getting their second starts of the year.
Coming off 5 shutout innings.
Right. And he'll be facing former Met Zach Wheeler. So that'll be a fun. And then Wednesday, 1:05, the getaway game. Max Scherzer toes the rubber for his second start of the year against Aaron Nola.
Nice pitching matchup there.
Yeah, technical travel day Thursday. The Mets will be off there before they head back to Queens. I mean, this is another big series for the Mets. I do think that they'll take the series 2-1. I think they lose tomorrow night against Wheeler. I think that's where the loss is. But I'm not. Again, usually stuff like this is a little bit of a toss-up. I still lead Mets probably taking the series 2-1.
Do we have a DeGrom injury update? We're still looking at 4 weeks for DeGrom, or
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, we
I
probably
haven't
won't.
seen anything really through the weekend.
that's a
yeah,
shame.
we probably
So-
won't get another update until after the 4 weeks
Right.
because he's shut down for
Yeah.
that long.
It's a shame, but hey, the starters are showing up without him at the moment in a weird way, so more power to them. All right, let's head down to the farm. We'll start with the positive notes of the Rochester Red Wings. 4-2, they're tied third in the International League East division at the moment. Obviously took four of the 6 from Toledo over the weekend.
After
and
dropping
last week, yeah.
After dropping their opener.
Right. They did lose yesterday. But that being said, it's a very good Toledo team. Detroit's got a lot of prospects that will either be stashed there or be brought there. Riley Green was supposed to break camp with Detroit, but got hurt. He'll end up being in Toledo when he gets back healthy. So like I said, Detroit has a lot of prospects stashed in Toledo. So obviously, to me, the key player, position player anyway, right now for Rochester is Trace Bria, the catcher, second in the International League in batting average, 533 right now.
Just keeps hitting.
Only has a home run and 1 RBI, but yeah, as I mentioned, just keeps hitting. On base of 563, 800 slugging, and a 1.363 OPS. I believe that's also second in the International League as well. So this is a guy who he's one of them that will probably, in my mind, get called up eventually here.
Yeah.
He was technically a taxi squad player last year when they were still doing it, but he's been in Rochester now. This is his second, what will be his de facto second full-time season in Rochester. Really AAA level, because of obviously the realignment in the minor leagues that occurred in between seasons last year. So he's been a bright spot throughout the past really couple years for Rochester with the Nationals affiliation, just because of I'll throw the stat out here. First time that the Red Wings have been above 500 since 2019.
Yeah, it's been a while.
A lot of positive. Donovan Casey, one of the other prospects, has 6 RBIs. He's leading the team there. Luis Garcia has 6 runs. And the pitchers picking up the wins were Ben Bramer, Sam Clay, Jace Fry, and Carson Teal. Cade Cavalli pitched opening day. He got no decision, but he had a rough spring. I believe he's sitting at about a 6.5 ERA right now. I think it's something like that, or 6.35 through the one start. But he'll be on the toe, and that's the beauty about the way, if there's one positive in the way the minor league schedule is structured again this year, is that you'll see the guy again in this series pitch coming up here, and for them that is starting tomorrow. They have their home opener, and they have a 6-game slate against the Buffalo Bisons, AAA affiliate for Toronto. Some nobles for Buffalo. Joe Biagini's back within the Toronto organization, coming back from injury. So he's hanging out in AAA, more or less rehabbing. And former big leaguer Malik Smith is also there. And prospects Thomas Hatch and Anthony Kay for Buffalo. Really the main promotion before we have our show on Thursday for Rochester is opening night tomorrow night. Obviously, I think they're giving away a Trapper hat. I think it's the technical.
I think so.
Yeah.
First however many fans. I'm not quite sure on the number, but
right. And also the 60-degree guarantee rather, as well. It's looking like they'll be safe there. And Milo the Bat Dog will be there tomorrow. So
Paul's favorite promo.
Hey, Bat Dogs kick ass. Like we mentioned, tough to obviously gauge, but nice positive start for the Red Wings.
Yeah, after dropping their opener, I was like, I know it was only one game, very small sample size, but the way it happened, I was like, I don't know how good this Red Wings team is going to be.
Right.
But for them to battle back and, win 4 in a row before dropping the game yesterday, it's pretty impressive. But one thing I am concerned with, like you said, if Trace Berea gets called up, that's going to really hurt their offense, and he's actually been kind of not really carrying them, but really producing.
Right. Now, what will be key for Rochester is really how well the Nationals end up doing. I can see a path where the Nationals can kind of hang in contention, but if this opening series is any indication, that's probably not going to be the case. Obviously, like we said, with equally as part as the major leagues, it's hard to tell with the minor leagues as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously a guy like Luis Garcia rather would be up as well. I mean, he's a top prospect for the Nationals, and it'll be interesting once he comes back healthy. Carter Keyboom, where they put him initially, he'll probably get some run in AAA really to get the wheels going again. But
is that the greatest name for a baseball player, Connor Keyboom?
No.
I think that's a great name.
Nah.
Especially when he goes Keyboom.
I'm more of a Cutter Crawford for the Red Sox is up there.
And he does throw a cutter.
Right. So, then on the opposite side of the coin, also down I-90, Syracuse Mets, tail of two teams. They did have yesterday's game postponed due to the weather, but they're 1-4. They're 9th in the International League East. Not a ton of positives for them against Scranton, but it was a loaded Scranton team, as you mentioned off there, Kyle. That being said, team leader is Carlos Rincon, 278 average. Quinn Brody, though, tied first in the International League with 4 stolen bases already. And Mike Montgomery, through his one start, has a 0.00 whip, also leads the International League there. This was a Mets team that I thought if anybody was going to have a run in, it'd be them out of the two, perhaps. But what got them is the Mets did end up calling up a couple guys right before opening day. Travis Jankowski, we mentioned him, how he had a top performance over the weekend for the Mets. He was one of them that called up. Travis Blankenhorn he wasn't up with the Mets, but he reported to Syracuse late for whatever reason. I know he missed opening day. And he was one of their key players throughout the year last year. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with the Mets. Like we said, it's tough to kind of gauge properly off the bat where these teams kind of land. But if it's any indication, it's a lot of the same as it was last year for the Mets.
Pitching. That's my takeaway. I think they're really going to struggle all year with pitching.
Mm-hmm. The week ahead for Syracuse, they are on the road in Columbus. Columbus is the AAA affiliate for the Cleveland Guardians. Some notables for Columbus. Tyler Freeman and Nolan Jones are two of the top prospects for Cleveland. They are starting the year at AAA. I would not be surprised to see either one of those two back up. Well, Freeman would be a backup. He did have a couple games with Cleveland last year. Nolan Jones would be, I believe, making his debut. Josh Naylor is rehabbing. It's not a true rehab after his injuries last year, devastating leg injuries. But he's starting the year at Columbus. It will be interesting to kind of see how they use him fully moving forward. And then they also have Will Benson and Oscar Gonzalez, two very good outfield prospects for Cleveland as well, who actually saw play in person in AA Akron last year. Both really good players there. You mentioned pitching. This is going to be an interesting series. Columbus is 3-3 on the year. Their pitching has not been overwhelming either, so maybe this is exactly kind of a good spot for the Mets. Maybe not pitching-wise per se, but maybe a spot where the offense can at least get going a little bit and get a little bit of momentum to help that pitching aspect.
And it might not be as bad as we think.
Right.
I mean, they did face a very good Scranton lineup. So I guess we'll have to kind of just wait it out and see how they do against Columbus.
Right. All right. So that wraps up the show for today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether it be live or after the fact. Make sure you listen to us on Spotify. Check us out here on YouTube, obviously. Be back Thursday at 11 a.m. Any parting thoughts, Kyle, Nate?
I think it's just immensely positive
Right.
for the two teams, for the Mets and the Yankees, to take series in division games.
Big.
To start off the season on the right foot,
Yep.
as we kind of named this episode. So I think it's immensely positive for those two clubs.
Yeah.
And people always think that like games in April don't matter. They most certainly do. A lot of times at the end of the year, division races come down to 1, 2, 3 games. So it's very key, to get off to a good start.
Right. All right. For Kyle Evans, I'm Paul Russo for Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast. Appreciate Nate Sharman behind the scenes producing. We'll see everybody and talk to everybody Thursday at 11 here at PhilliesOne.com. Until then, have a good, awesome baseball midweek, and see you then.